We're back on the HD Connection, and today's guest happens to be someone we love hearing during the college football and basketball season. He has his own very unique style, sound, persona as well. I would like to welcome to the show one of the best in the business, my friend, CBS play-by-play announcer, Brad Nessler. Brad, how's life treating you, my guy?
Harry Douglas, my good friend. How you doing, brother? It's great to see you and great to be on the HD Connection. I'm doing great. We made it this far through the season. We were kind of worried we were going to have football, and we're doing fine. A lot of negative COVID tests for me, so everything's good, brother. Good to see you.
You too. That is a blessing, Brad. Negative COVID tests is what we want right now through this pandemic that we're going through. But Brad, I have to ask you, what actually made you get into commentary, like want to commentate games and just be in that field and enjoy the media world?
Started way back when I was about 12, Harry. I told my parents I was going to be a sportscaster, and my dad said, "Well, how do you plan to make any money then?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. We'll see how it works out." So even before starting to play organized ball, as we were kids, our sandlot stuff, I was always the guy doing play-by-play, whether I was throwing the ball or catching the ball. But I would say, Namath back to pass, looking for Maynard across the middle, and we're doing that stuff when we're 11, 12 years old. So I think I was the play-by-play guy of town before I ever got to high school. And then, I majored in broadcasting in college and started doing play-by-play on the campus radio station. I did just about everything I could. I did baseball. I did hockey, which everybody thinks I know a lot about hockey, and I don't really, but you just kind of do what you have to do. I did Golden Gloves boxing. I did wrestling one time, college wrestling on radio.
Wow.
I had no idea what the hell I was doing, but I had a guy wrestler next to me. So just kind of did everything I could. And then, that was in Minnesota growing up, and, worked at a couple stations there, and then got a call from WGST in Atlanta about coming down and just being full-time sports. Because what I was doing at the time was I was doing sports, but I was also like DJing and had a 6-hour radio show, so just being all sports was good with me. And so in 1982, I think the biggest break probably is when I got the radio job to be the voice of the Falcons. And I just turned 26.
Yes, Brad. Yes.
Yeah. And everybody hated me in the NFL. There was 2 guys who were really young, because there were so many guys that, that was one of 32 jobs, doing radio for an NFL team. And I was one of the youngest guys around. Kevin Harlan did the Kansas City Chiefs roughly at the same time. And Kevin's a couple years younger than me. So we were the 2 guys that all the older guys hated. They were like, "You guys shouldn't get jobs like this when you're 26, And so did the Falcons for, 5 years, and I did Vikings for a couple of years. And in the meantime, I got into the TV part of it, doing ACC football and all that. So it's just kind of always, one step up the ladder, I guess. I don't know if I'm near the top of the ladder, but there aren't too many rungs left. I don't have too much time left anyway, Harry.
And Brad, you said something very key. When you was a kid, you used to envision yourself doing these things. So one of the things that I try to tell kids growing up, or even older adults, is that everything starts with a vision. When you can see it happening before it actually does happen, I think the fruition of it is going to come to light even more.
Yeah, it's exactly right. I tell you a story that's kind of funny. When I think I was 13, I went to a Vikings-Bears game with my dad and some of the guys that he worked with. I think the wind chill was like 36 below or something like that at the old Met Stadium. But at any rate, at halftime, I went to the souvenir stand, and Pat Summerall, who has always been one of my idols, was doing the game with Tom Brookshire. And he came, actually, the old stadium was outside, everything was outside. Their booth was enclosed, but it wasn't heated. And he had come to the souvenir stand because they were freezing to death, and he was buying stocking caps for he and Tom Brookshire. And so, I recognized him, and I'm like, wow, that's Pat Summerall, man, So not being afraid at all, I don't know why I wasn't, walked up to him and I said, "Hey, Mr. Summerall, I'm Brad Nessler, and I'm going to have your job someday." And he said, "Oh, good luck with that, kid." And so I eventually got to CBS the first time. This is my second stint at CBS. I was there 2.5 years the first time before I went to ESPN. So I got the job at CBS, and I was doing both college and NFL football. And so I was invited to the NFL seminar, and I got there, and by that time it was Pat Summerall and John Madden, world famous duo. Not that he and Tom Brookshire weren't, but So we go to this kind of a cocktail party, and everybody had to do promos, and we had our CBS Blazers on and everything. And so all of that's done. And so, I was 32 or 31 or whatever, and I was new at CBS, but I thought, well, what the heck, Pat Summerall's Pat Summerall, man. So I walked up to him and I said, hey, Pat, you remember a kid back, several years ago, a little chunky guy that came up to you at the old Matt Stadium at a Viking game and said who it was and that I was going to take your job? And he said, actually, I do remember that. And I said, well, I'm that guy. And he said, well, kid, you're a little closer. Good story. I love Pat
I like
Summerall,
that.
man. God rest his soul. But anyway, that's just one of the stories about my life, about my idols and being able to meet them and that type of thing.
That's right. So, Brad, what are some of the early lessons that you learned within this business, within this field, that you still carry with you today?
Man, here I do everything so exactly the way I started. It's really weird. I don't have my folders and stuff in front of me. I lay everything out on a legal size manila folder, one team on one side, one team on the other side. And I still do the same things as far as preparation, the notes I write down, the stats I write down, the homework, and say it's full of stuff. And sometimes I don't even look down during the game. I just know it's there because I've written it down and it's already embedded in my head. But there's so many guys that have changed their ways, and I dig the way some guys do it. Mike Tirico and I are good friends, and man, Mike does a game, and he's got like 3 iPads, and he's got all the monitors that we all have, but then he's got all this other stuff, and all he has to do is like hit a button, and information will pop up about your wide receiver, the slot guy, whatever. And I've got it on an old-fashioned manila envelope. It's kind of like the way you grow up and the things you do. If it's good, you stick with it, and
that's right.
And I guess the big thing is there's no shortcuts for me. I mean, if I do a team 3 weeks in a row, that's the same team. And I might do that with Alabama at times, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of go back to square one and start over because I don't want all the preparation that I did before to clog my brain or get in the way. I want to keep that stored, but I want to find something new, and so sometimes that's hard to do because if you see people so often, you almost you want to get lazy, but so far I haven't too much. I don't think. I hope not.
But that works for you. And that's the thing. You understand how you operate. So you continuously do the things that work for you. And that's big because a lot of times, especially in this business, a lot of people may try to copy person A, B, C, or D instead of figuring out what works best for them. Because what works for one man might not be the best thing that works for another person.
Exactly. And the way you ran routes, might not be the same way somebody else does because you might have one little idiosyncrasy that makes you Harry, and I might have one thing that makes me. So
that's right.
You can't change your approach, I don't think. And I think consistency is a big thing. And, you find that in football, you find it in broadcasting, whatever. If you can find your niche, whatever that is, and if it works for you, and you're still employed, keep doing it.
That's right. So you've had an opportunity within the media world to work with some iconic people. Now, don't get me wrong, you're an icon yourself, especially in my eyes. But you had a chance to work with people like Dick Vitale, Brian Greasy, Ron Jaworski, Dick Vermeil, your partner in crime right now, Gary Danielson, Bill Raftery. Who was the most unique person that you worked with, and tell me why?
Wow. That's a good one. Now you name some of the guys. I've been with Gary twice. I was with Gary 8 years the first time, and now we're 5 years or 6 years or 9 years first time, 5 years this time. We always tell everybody we got divorced and we got remarried. I was with Ian Len Swan for 8 years, and then Bob Greasy and Paul McGuire for 2 more years after that. So I was with Grease for 10 years, and Brian, too, you mentioned. Todd Blackledge and I were together for 8. I've worked with just about every sideline reporter I can even imagine. You mentioned Raft. I would have to say Dick Vitale. He's just so unique, and he's got his shtick and everything, and everybody knows that, and Dick knows that. He's not crazy, but he made quite a living off of it, and he's really, what people don't realize is how hard he works and the homework he puts in. Now, I can't read his writing at all, but he comes prepared, man, and he's he's 80 years old now or whatever, and he's still doing it and still loving it. But I think it's just his unbridled passion and the fact that, you know, we went places, whether we were out to dinner or doing a game or in the hotel lobby. You know, I went to both his daughter's weddings, you know, when they got married. I know his grandkids.
Wow.
I know the son-in-laws real well, you know, been to his house, stayed at his house, been to some of the cancer things that he does that's raised millions and millions and millions of dollars through the Jimmy V Foundation and all that. He's a unique dude, man. And everybody loves him. And it's like you walk into a basketball arena, it's like walking in with Elvis or something. And so he would have to be the guy, because for so many years sitting there and he's like, you know, oh, Mr. Nessler, you're PTP, you're high riser, you're awesome, baby. Harry, you're awesome with a capital A.
Listen, Brad, I love it because, listen, I'll tell you this. So when I was in high school, right, our basketball team, we were ranked in the top 5 in the state every year. My brother had a chance to, Dick Vitale called some of our brothers' games while he was at Florida State University.
Yeah,
and
okay.
We literally on the bus used to be like, they better guard him as soon as he get off the bus, baby. He can light it up from anywhere. He can light it up from anywhere. He's a diaper dandy. So listen, Dick Vitale, his energy level is so infectious to so many people. Like as soon as you meet him or as soon as you hear him, you know exactly who it is. It makes you want to watch him more. It makes you want to hear him more as well.
He said stuff, you know, during games even that you can, I'm not going to repeat some of it, you could take, you could kind of take it 2 different ways, you know? And so he did this one time in a game we were doing, and I completely lost it. And as the player was going down to shoot free throws on the other end, you know, it was a 1-on-1 or something. They took a timeout in between free throws, and I took my headset off and I just put my head on the counter, and he's like, oh, Brad, what'd I say? What are you laughing about? You know, and I go, Dick, you just said this. And he goes, oh, no, I didn't, did I? And I said, yeah, you did. And he goes, oh, do you think anybody heard me? And I said, only about 15 million people. So, I mean, he's had a few of those and some beauties that I probably have told you when I see you, but I can't tell you on your show. But anyway.
Oh, trust me, I understand.
Yeah, anyway. Yeah, he's had some beauties, and you know, he and I did the video games together for, I don't know, 8 years or something. And every time we got together for a recording session, he'd work for about a half an hour, and then he'd have his cell phone out and he'd be talking to his guy about his stocks or something. He'd go, oh, I got to take a time out. My voice is getting sore. And I'd go, well, if you get off the damn phone, your voice wouldn't be so sore. So anyway, I love him. He's like the crazy uncle, you know, and he's awesome with a capital A.
I like that, man. I like that a lot. So recently, Brad, you had the opportunity to call the Army-Navy football game. And this year, actually, it was played up at Army, up in West Point, New York. What was that experience like, knowing the rivalry between those two teams, between those two universities?
Yeah, you know, I've been to West Point before. A couple years ago, before we did the game, we went to Annapolis and we spent time with the mids, and then we went to West Point, which is just a gorgeous place. I mean, the leaves had already fallen and everything when I was up there recently, but you know, the whole place is like built on rock, and it's just kind of awesome to see how they did it. But I had seen the stadium before, and I'd been there, and I'd eaten with the cadets, you know, before in the mess hall and that kind of thing. So I kind of got a feel for it. But then having the game there was really unique. You know, we're used to Philadelphia with 76,000 people, and that part's cool because for a lot of people, it's a bucket list thing to do, is to go to that game. And I know people that are still, you know, bothering me about, well, when it gets back to 76,000, you got to get me tickets and all that. But to just have the mids and the cadets there kind of split in that venue, and then it's really cool. I get emotional for that game because I want to be perfect doing the game, and it's hard to be really good because we don't see those teams on a regular basis. You know, you try to keep track of them as best you can over the course of the season, because we know the coaches and we know at the end of the year we're gonna see them, and you can watch all the film in the world, but you don't really get a feel for, you know, their other 9 or 10 games depending on how many they got played. You know, they were allowed to play this year, but you know, then to have it there for the first time since World War II was really pretty cool. And some of the things that they, you know, wanted to do, they couldn't do because of the severe fog. You know, the leapfrogs and the guys usually come in with the parachutes with a game ball and all that stuff, and they have the flyover and you the president came and they were going to helicopter him in, and they couldn't do that. So everything was ground based. It was like Marine Corps ground or something around there, but it was really a cool feeling. And then the stadium started moving right at the beginning after the national anthem. And I looked at Gary. I'd never done a game there. I'd been at the stadium, but never in the booth. And, stadium holds about 38,000, I think, but there were only 9,000 there, cadets and mids, and that was it. And all of a sudden I looked at Gary and I was like, damn, there's an earthquake or something, because the only time I've ever felt the stadium move was Texas A&M, because it's built so high and it's so steep that when they start doing their swaying thing, you start swaying with it at the beginning. But anyway, it was literally moving enough that when I was talking, it was going almost like this, So anyway, I was like, wow, this is pretty awesome. So I don't know, but that game's kind of cool because those guys, none of them, or might be one every 5 years, will go to the NFL, and they're there for the love of the game, and then what they're going to do afterwards is a lot bigger than football. So I get kind of wrapped up in it sometimes, and I just about want to cry at the beginning of the game, and I go, God, I got a game to do. I got to wake up here and get going. And then the fog made it pretty unique too. Couldn't see much really on the far end zone where they finally scored a touchdown. If it wasn't for our monitors, I would have no clue, because Army was wearing green and they were the same color as the grass. So it was pretty different.
And I'll say this, Brad, that Army-Navy game is on my bucket list, but I had the opportunity my freshman year in college to actually go up to Army. We played at West Point.
Oh,
and
you did?
The hardest I've ever been hit in my entire life, Brad, was from a Army player. Listen, when you talk about discipline, those guys are disciplined. I was on kickoff coverage, right? And the guy was springing for a big return. So I peel back to go try to make the tackle. Next thing you know, I get ear holed. And I was like, damn, did a Mack truck just hit me? What just hit me? So I'll go to the sideline. I'm asking everybody, where did the guy come from? What number was it? Who hit me? Because at some point I'm trying to get him back during the game. But everybody was like, man, we don't even know. We just know you got killed. That's all we know.
Yeah.
But those guys are so disciplined. And our field goal kicker, Arthur Carmody, his brother actually was at Army at the time, and he had a chance to meet him on the field after the game. So that was unique. So that's one of the things that's on my bucket list, definitely.
Well, I'm glad they took away the ear holing now, because you can't do that anymore. At least you're not supposed to get away with it, because that used to really hurt, and it hurt to even watch it. It hurt to have it done to you. It hurt as a broadcaster to have somebody have it done to them. And you're right. I think the biggest thing is Army and Navy linebackers. You guys are wearing they're not neck rolls anymore. They're called butterfly resistors or something, the thing behind the helmet. And they're just like, I'm going to make 14 tackles in this game, and I don't care. And it's bam, bam, bam. And that's the way they play. And that's why that game might be boring to some people, but it isn't to me. And by the way, if it's on your bucket list, next year we get back to Philadelphia, when it gets back to being normal, come on up.
That's my guy. See, that's why I love you, Brad. Always looking out for the next person. And this weekend, there's one of I'll say every year, the biggest game in college football happens to be the SEC championship. You're going to be on that call along with Gary Danielson, Alabama, Florida. But it's a lot of things on the line when it comes to this game, Brad. You have Heisman trophies that are going to be on the field, SEC title at stake, national championship hopes as well at stake. Then you have NFL prospects all over the field. Wow. Now, when you look at this Alabama football team, what sticks out to you the most?
I think probably completeness, Harry. And I probably wouldn't have said that, 2 months ago or whatever. I think everybody got a little distorted when Alabama played Ole Miss, and Ole Miss scored so many points. But what you have to remember is Lane Kiffin, he had about that many pages of notes about all the things that gave Nick Saban defenses trouble, and he used every one of those notes in that game to score as many points as they did. From that point on, and Alabama's defense was young. Dylan Moses hadn't come back from his knee yet, really wasn't going full blast. The secondary was young. They weren't established yet. And I saw in the next game, they said they got better. And I kept talking about people and talking to people and saying, they're going to be a complete team, because offense, they've got figured out already. Even without Jalen Waddle, they got it figured out.
Yep.
And but the defense is suspect. Everybody kept saying that, and I go, wait a minute. Well, from that game on, I think they're only giving up under 3 yards a carry on the ground. So they got that part figured out, and their secondary is really good. You wouldn't like them, let's put it that way. Malachi Moore back there and Brian Branch, both freshmen. Josh Jobe on one corner, Patrick Surtain on the other corner. They're good, man. And so I think the defense has made them a complete team. The offense goes without saying. Like you said, there's NFL guys all over the place. And DeVonta Smith, they had Ruggs and Judy last year, and DeVonta was kind of considered the third amigo, and then Waddle was kind of the return guy, and he'd be the fourth guy. DeVonta Smith's something else, man. He is special, and he's
a different breed, Brad.
He's lights out, isn't he? I mean, he can block.
He's a different breed. He's
not the biggest cat in the world. One of the biggest cats in the world is about ready to jump up here on the computer, and that's my Van Brocklin. You stay but anyway, you said it. Heisman guys. Kyle Trask, has got 40 touchdowns. Mac Jones has played lights out. One of those guys will probably win it. And DeVonta Smith might be the number 3 guy right now. I mean, maybe he's number 2. I don't know. And Najee Harris got 22 touchdowns on the ground. So, I mean, and their offensive line is probably the best offensive line in college football. So I'd say Alabama is as strong as that's Van Brocklin back there, as strong as you can be. And they're the number 1 team in the country.
And I'll tell you one thing that's going to help DeVonta Smith is him actually going back and doing punt returns now. That's going to help his Heisman win percentage go up a lot because of the fact that he's doing what he's doing at the wide receiver position, but now he's added to the return game. And when we've seen receivers in the past win the Heisman, they were involved in the return game. But I want to go back to something you said earlier. This Alabama defense, right? This Alabama defense is so good, but they're so young as well. They don't have a senior in their starting lineup. The only 2 seniors they have on the defense are 2 backups.
Right.
And that's the beauty of things.
I just hope a lot of them stick around. I mean, some of them some of them can't go pro yet, and then some of them will leave, but they plug in different guys and they're good at every position. When you're good at every level, they don't have a dominant defensive lineman. But their defense isn't the way it used to be, where they had Cody and some of those dudes in there. They were 365 pounds, and then they got kind of smaller. They got guys that could rush, Jonathan Allen and those kind of dudes. And they're really deep on the defensive line. I just don't think they have a star. It's kind of like Georgia, they got a lot of depth. Don't have one guy that just go, wow.
Yep.
We got a scheme for him, because he's got 15 sacks or something. They don't have that guy, but they got so many different levels of guys, and the way they rotate them, it doesn't matter.
And I'm interested within this football game, is Dan Mullen going to take a page out of Lane Kiffin's book? Because when I look at this Alabama defense last year and years prior to this year, the thing that got this defense was tempo, stack formations, motion, going fast and a dual threat quarterback. So I'm wondering if Dan Mullen is going to try to take that approach and speed things up for this defense so they can't get calls in.
I think, he will probably try that. I think the other thing that's given Alabama trouble over the years is a mobile quarterback, and Carl Trask isn't.
Yep.
And, they don't have a ground game to speak of at all. Damian Pierce is about it. I mean, he might have 400 yards rushing, something like that. But, I mean, they were running Trask last week, against LSU. I mean, he scored a couple touchdowns, but he's got a knee brace as big as my body on that leg. And I'm like, you're running your quarterback who's a Heisman candidate because they can't run. So I don't think Alabama's got to worry about that. So they're going to make them one-dimensional. The tempo could be something. And Kadarius Toney and Kyle Pitts are really bad matchup issues for a lot of people. So they've got the ingredients. They're going to have to score. They're going to have to score
a lot of points.
They're going to have to score 48 to win. Seriously, they're going to have to score almost 50 points, and they're going to have to get some breaks because I just don't think their defense is good enough to stop Alabama.
So Florida last week, coming off a disappointing loss to LSU, Kyle Pitts decides to sit that game out. I think it was a coach's decision. How do you feel about that? Because when I was watching that football game, the first thing came to mind is why is Kyle Pitts not playing? And I hope they're not saving him for the SEC championship because the most important game is the game that you're playing right now.
Exactly.
Not looking ahead at things. What's your take on that?
I thought the same thing. I got back to the hotel room after doing the Army-Navy game, and I just sat down and had the opportunity just, to watch a whole game sort of uninterrupted, nobody else around me. And I was thinking the same thing. And I thought, are they really taking LSU lightly? As bad as LSU has been, you got to be kidding me. And then, they just they seemed like they had the attitude the whole game. I know there's a lot made of, the guy throwing the guy's cleat and did it cut of the game. He probably did or didn't help him anyway. But there was a bunch of that stuff going on the whole game, the whole preening thing after making one tackle. I'm like, that's why you're on scholarship. You broke up one pass, big deal, So they kind of had an attitude, I thought, about them the whole game that I don't usually see from Alabama. And I'm not saying it's a discipline thing or whatever. I just had that feeling. And then when I saw Pitts over there on his phone texting, I'm like, seriously, dude, you could at least pay attention to the game. You're over there and the cameras catch you texting. That's pretty stupid. I don't know. I feel the same way you did, to be honest with you.
Now, I said, I wrote this on Twitter that this is the year that the college football playoffs should be expanded. Not saying past this year, but I thought this year the college football playoffs should have been expanded because you have so many teams. You have Coastal Carolina, you have a Cincinnati, you have so much unknown with so many teams that this would have been a great year to do it. Do you feel the same, or you feel like they should just keep it to 4?
I think when I was doing one of those 4 games, they said, let's just keep it 4. Now I'm at a network that's not doing one of those 4. And I say, yeah, let's bring a whole bunch in, and play them somewhere. So I don't know. I think it will expand someday. I just think there's too much calling for it. And there's, too much media pressure that people want to see more. And you're right. This would have been a kind of a cool year with Cincinnati and the Chanticleers and all of that to maybe be part of the party. And I wish they were, and I wish one of those other teams would make it in sometime just to break the barrier, and then maybe we'd see more of that in the future. But as far as the networks and all of that, as far as TV viewership, they want those premier teams that everyone knows to be in it in the finals.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's the one and only Brad Nessler. Thank you, bud.
Hey, man, I can't wait to see you in person. We got to get out there and do some socializing, okay?
That's right. We will. As soon as this thing get under control, I'll hit you up, bud.
You got it, brother. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.